Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Whoa. Am I on? It says show screen, but Michael, can you press the show screen? Or are we out of luck here? I don't seem to be showing my screen. Huh. Oh, I think, it's aha. There you go. I have a choice when ready to show my screen. Now I'm doing it. And good morning, everybody here from the Temple of Silence and the darkness. I'm talking to Michael in Hawaii, and of course it's morning here, but dark, and it's evening there. I suppose dark, but we are advancing towards the light. And I just wanted to review the idea that all 12 signs of the zodiac are used for general progress of the jiva, or of yourself as a spiritual being. However, 7 signs particularly are used for crisis that everybody has to pass through, and 5 signs are signs of transition into the fifth kingdom of nature. And I put all that together, and he says making 24, and he calls it the 24 episodes which mark the cross of life. I really don't know those, but it would be interesting to see if in the tradition, or within the tradition, how these 24 episodes are marked and the degree to which they are related to the zodiacal signs. 24, excuse me, occasionally that will happen, especially in the morning. It's the number of Shambhala, particularly. And if you reduce it to a 6, you have for yourself the first place where Shambhala is focally found, the 6th plane, and that you become a liberated monad at that point. So 24 and 6 are very significant. As a matter of fact, we live in such a 246 solar system at this time. Now, why 246? Here's the 6 of the monad, the probable 4th ray of the subsidiary monad for our solar logos. It's kind of interesting. Yellow is the color of the 4th ray, and yellow is very much the color of our particular solar logos as it shines in the ethers. Now, there are stars of all the different colors. Every one of those triangles you see there, red, blue, green, yellow, orange, maybe the lighter blue too, and the violet, there are stars of all those hues, and we cannot think but that they mean something, you know. Now, the further example or probability is that our solar logos will shine forth finally as a second ray monad shining upon the logoic plane. So not just the fourth ray, but the second ray as well. And so there you see the number 24. That number, of course, you know, the fact that I just seem to, excuse me, I just seem to have this sense that the hours of the day and all the breaking down to 24 and the close relation of our planet to the body of the sun, with our planet representing the base of the spine center, that whole 24 thing becomes important. And so does the 6. So we live in a Davic solar system, as he says, with 140,000 million Deva units and only 60,000 million, or, you know, we call it a billion or a milliard human units. And then we head towards the number 6. I mentioned that in the next solar system, I don't know where they will be coming from, but we will have, instead of 2,000 units of life in the second solar system, and instead of 1,000 units of life, as in the first major solar system, we will have 300 billion units of life. So the total will be 6 billion units of life, which are passing through this particular solar system for elevation. And I believe that those would be the self-conscious units, because when you get down to the cellular level, there are just trillions, you know. So the whole numerology of reality, the numerology of reality is a very powerful science and very obscure to people such as ourselves at this time. I guess you can say when we need to know it, we will know it. Now, somehow, out of all of this, out of this green triangle, which is a cosmic monadic area of life, comes our whole solar system and the 6 other solar systems as well. We have what we call 7 solar systems, of which ours is one. Interesting that they're all, you know, represented here as triangles. And those 7 solar systems together form one organ or one chakra in the body of the one about whom naught may be said. And when it comes to our solar system, I think my impression is that there are 2 contenders, chakra contenders, for that to which to allocate our solar system, either the solar plexus of the great unknown God or the sacral center of the great unknown God. Sometimes we feel very much like a solar plexus of the, or let's just say that our local cosmic logos, in whom we are a heart center, feels like a solar plexus. When you add all those different chakras together, feels like the solar plexus within the unknown God. Sometimes when you look at page 50 and you see that Scorpio and Taurus are both involved, it begins to feel like a sacral center, our local cosmic logos. Anyway, we're not what you call a really sacred cosmic logos yet, just the way we are not really yet a sacred solar system. Sirius is a sacred solar system, and we are not, but we're on our way. So as you see, just the way there is sacred man, maybe an initiate of the 5th degree, and non-sacred man, everything below that. So it's true of solar logoi, it's true of planetary logoi, it's true of cosmic logoi, it's even true of these little, well, they're not little, but in terms of the diagram they are, these little triangles up here. Are they sacred or non-sacred in their sevenfold scheme? And we would have to figure out what initiation our local cosmic logos was taking to know whether it was sacred or non-sacred. And I'll just say, we can't really do that with certainty at all. However, a lot of it has to do with triangles, because let's take a look at a human being. When you are, excuse me, aligning the ajna, the system above the head, and the alta, major, and back, and you get a triangular alignment. Not before that can you say you are an initiate of the 3rd degree. In other words, what I'm trying to say is the completion of certain triangular arrangements tells you your initiatory level. So just, look around Cosmic Fire, page 169, 170, and you will see what those arrangements are and how completing triangles within your system is a most necessary thing to do, and always marks out some degree of elevation. Now, there are so many uncompleted triangles. When we look at it, Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity has not yet completed its triangular relationship. And that, I think, will mean something special for our planetary logos. Maybe it will mean the 3rd degree, and we're nowhere near that in the planetary system of initiation. Okay, well, I think that gives us an idea of some of these great aggregates, usually sevenfold aggregates that are trying to complete all of their interlocking, that we find as we continue to rise in subtlety and in power through the various planes. We'll go through globes and chains and planetary schemes, and we'll go through solar logoi and pre-solar logoi, and we'll go through cosmic logoi and however they are divided, and we'll go through what's called ones about whom naught may be said. And if analogy holds, then the type of triangles which have been completed within these great aggregates tell you the stage of evolution of that particular combination, that aggregate. And I just, I know I've done this before, but just so you see where to go to make your studies more profitable. And there are triangles all over the place. And this is a major, major page for triangles and telling you the status that the triangle indicates. You see it, don't you? I mean, this number 6 is beyond us, beyond most of us, almost certainly the heart, the 7 centers, which are head centers and probably within the head, and then probably the 1,000-petaled lotus, and as well the 96-petaled Ajna center. It's not spelled out completely, but when there is an active flow of energy between these, you're on your way to becoming a master. So what was my point in all of this? That triangles, the degree of completion of certain triangles indicate the status, spiritual status of the individual. Whether that individual is a man, a planetary logos, a solar logos, those are found articulated in cosmic fire. But I guess we could go down and talk about cells and atoms and who knows what. I'll bet the triangular situation would hold. Okay, and I noticed that, but Michael would have let me know if there was no sound coming from me, so sometimes it's my fault. However, sometimes
that was
not.
just one individual having trouble with their sound.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Okay, friends, now, so I just want to say and happily welcome Anna and Annette and Barbara and Brennan and Catherine and Frederick and Ishtar and Joe Garso, Karen, Catherine and Leslie, Lynette and Mariana and Martha from Denmark, and Risto from Finland, and Stephen from way down under, Tia, Tiu, Winnie, Zenaidi, and Veronica, and I'm grateful to have Michael here as a guide and to you on that same side. Okay, now Michael tells me that we're approaching the end. Well, we are, but the end still probably has a few more sessions connected with it. Just remember that 24 is such an important number when it comes to Shambhala. And you know, it's so interesting, I may have mentioned it, but when it comes to the advanced schools, if you look in Letters on Occult Meditation, which, by the way, is a book I'd like to comment on sooner rather than later, you'll see a diagram which is kind of meant to represent the gates of Shambhala, and it's also in a place where the students gather. The amazing thing is there are 24 students, and three, I really wouldn't call them teachers. I would call them expert occultists that can help the students make their progress. So now I'll go on. And we apparently made it to page 476, and we're on webinar 63. That's an interesting number, isn't it? So often people are tested on the way up to 63, and maybe a little bit after, but then again, you know, up to your birthday, when you are 63, you're in your 63rd year. And sometimes that can be a tough one to get through. And sometimes people are, if they're not in allegiance with their own soul, they are abstracted during that year. Now, DK also told us about 63 that no large collection of 7 ashrams can have more than 63 members. So then when the number 63 is reached, and you consider the 7 ashrams, somehow, instead of going on to the number 64, we start with another collection. So there's some numerology here, which I think is probably pretty interesting. Now, just a little bit where he gives us advice, and of course I may have read this at one time or another. He gives us, and memorize those, of course, folks, you know, memorize the signs of crisis and why they are signs of crisis, and then maybe you will know what you are passing through. All the way up to the 3rd initiation, you are passing through crises that are sponsored by the triangle. Well, there's several triangles in there, but basically Virgo, Aries, Scorpio, Capricorn. All those signs are active in your crises. And since DK is so keen on crises, he says, well, why aren't you having a crisis? You know, it's almost amusing. perhaps we can think about the crisis in which we are engaged, or toward which we are tending. As I say, you'll find in the beginning a lot of Scorpio for the first 3 initiations, and Capricorn for the next 5, but of course, including the first 3. So about the crises, he says, shirk not these crises. Don't run away. Don't run away. Hard and difficult though they may appear to be, difficult they are. Forget not that the habit of confronting crisis is a long established one within the consciousness of humanity. I mean, really, we've had thousands of incarnations as a human being. That's a lot. And you can only imagine what we've already been through. Sometimes just crises of the personality, and sometimes crises of the soul and personality together. Man has the habit of crisis, if I may so call it. Now, man is not only the 4th kingdom of nature, but it is the 4th creative hierarchy. Man is, right? The hierarchy of initiates. And the soul ray of humanity at this time is the 4th ray. And ray 4 is the ray of crisis. So there's just so many reasons why man has a habit of crisis. And the idea of crisis indicates the cross. And when you look at our earth, even though we are monad 1, soul 2, personality 3, our symbol is the cross, circumscribed by the circle. So on this planet of releasing sorrow and purifying pain, these self-conscious beings, especially man, really know what it's like to deal with crisis. Below that, well, you deal with pain in the lower kingdoms, and because you're not self-conscious, you just pass through it and you don't know why. And above that, in the kingdom of souls, in the kingdom of planetary lives, you know so much that you have gone beyond the usual crises. So what are these crises? Maybe you're going through one right now. I'll tell you what, when Saturn plays up in the chart and maybe makes some tough aspects, we will know what crisis and decision are all about. Because, Saturn just brings on the difficulty. And lately, Saturn and Pluto have been together, so what a recipe for crisis. But DK says, they are only the points of examination Now think about it. You're in school, and every once in a while the teacher says, okay, next Friday, we're going to have a test on this section. So at least you're warned. Some teachers, they love pop quizzes, which means they haven't told you, and now you have a test. But astrology will help you know when a test is coming. And when you are being examined by the powers that be for your strength, your purpose, your purity, your motive, and the intent of the soul. I think it's a really good definition of what crisis is. There are some excellent definitions. Think about it for a minute. You go through a rough time, but there are spiritual implications to it. And really, your rough time is like an examination at school. And as a result of the examination, your strength, your purpose, purity, and motive, and the intent of your soul will come closer to realization. These crises, they evoke confidence when surmounted. It's every good Scorpio has to do. And don't forget that whatever your sign may be, the human creative hierarchy is ruled by the sign Scorpio. So Scorpio is never very far from us. And we live for many, many millions of years in the clutches of the Hydra. So you get confidence from these things, and your vision expands if you are successful in overcoming crises. They foster, they foster compassion and understanding. You say, look, oh, I've been through that. I actually know what you're going through. I don't just guess. I've been through that. They foster compassion and understanding for the pain and inner conflict. And you see, because with crisis, there's always conflict. You know, you're always going in two directions, and there's that friction from the cross. So they foster compassion and understanding for the pain and inner conflict they have engendered is never forgotten. For they draw upon the resources of the heart. Now, what would you say, you know? The heart, although active in all initiations, is most active at the fourth initiation, whose symbol is the cross. So crises which requires a cross, the crisis requires a cross. evokes the number 4, which evokes the 4th chakra, the 4th major chakra from below. Head center, ajna, throat, heart, 4. Base of the spine, sacral, solar plexus, heart, 4. Maybe in a way, the 4th initiation is the most decisively human initiation. You really do leave the animal kingdom behind. I know it's said that at the 3rd degree you can do that, but it is decisive at the 4th degree. So an overcome crisis, which we are to, we're to go through it, gives us compassion and understanding and a memory that doesn't fade, because it draws upon the resources of the 4th center, the heart. They release the light of wisdom. Now, what's wisdom? It's buddhi. From the 4th plane, the 4th systemic plane, they release the light of wisdom within the field of knowledge, so then you get buddhi manas. When you really overcome a crisis, the possibility of buddhi manas is there for you. They release the light of wisdom within the field of knowledge, and the world is enriched thereby. Okay. What do we gather from all this, Now memorize this about the planet that you live on. The planet of releasing sorrow and purifying pain. I always do it by saying PP, purifying pain, so I know the other one is releasing sorrow. It's not just sorrow you muddle around in, it actually releases the consciousness because you have passed through it. So when you read what Master DK has to say about pain, it's so poetic and so deeply evocative, and you just understand that he considers pain to be the fast path, if there is such a thing. Master Moria considers martyrdom to be the fast path. And the Dalai Lama, it is said, I didn't witness it myself, but burst into tears when trying to answer the question, what is the fast path? He couldn't name it because he had to say there is no fast path. But let's just say that if we pursue the requirements of initiation with sufficient ardor, so we burn for the initiation process and all it can give us when we want to assist and help, it will occur in time sooner. But when you push it, when you force the issue, the pain becomes more intense. Now, I'll tell you what, it's one of those mornings, and I've always been wondering where do I start? And I asked Michael, where do I start? Because I've kind of forgotten. But now I'm not going to forget. We're right up there at the conclusion factor. And it's going to take a few times. And now we're 64 and we have to start a new ashram here. But I think the page number is probably, yeah, oh, it's 477. Imagine that. Okay. Michael, is that you?
Yes. Leslie has written something in the chat box. Habit of crisis. And DK's reminder that crises are staged to draw out the highest and the best that is in a man. Quote, men run away, almost unrealizing it, from difficulty, from inharmonious conditions, from places which involve problems, and from circumstances which call for action of a high sort, and which are staged to draw out the best that is in a man, provided he stays in them. Continuing on, they flee from themselves and from other people instead of simply living the life. The adept speaks no word which can hurt, harm, or wound. Therefore, he has had to learn the meaning of speech in the midst of life's turmoil. He wastes no time in self-pity or self-justification, for he knows the law has placed him where he is and where he best can serve, and has learned that difficulties are ever of a man's own making and the result of his own mental attitude. If the incentive to justify himself occurs, he recognizes it as a temptation to be avoided. He realizes that each word spoken, each deed undertaken, and every look and thought has its effect for good or for evil upon the group. End quote.
Excellent, excellent, and thank you, Leslie and Michael. It's an important one, and it gives us something about, again, fourth ray, the art of living. Matter of fact, I was thinking we have a fourth ray conference coming up, and there should be some kind of talk about the art of living. I seem completely without a pen at the moment, which is unusual for me, but I would appreciate, Michael, if you would send me something, just say art of living, because I think I'm going to write a little talk about that. Because he tries to tell us, strangely, that the artist is found equally on all the rays. But that what is so important about the fourth ray is that it brings forward the possibility of the art of living. Now, from another point of view, DK talks about the first ray, fourth ray, and fifth ray mental elementals. And from that perspective, the fourth ray definitely will confer artistic ability and artistic tendency. But let's realize somehow that you don't have to be on the fourth ray to be an artist. Sometimes that is forgotten. And the whole idea that the soul is staging circumstances to draw the best out of a human being, and that we human beings have the tendency to flee the very circumstances which have been carefully managed, manipulated, brought into existence by a great intelligence we call the solar angel. There's an old saying, it says, bloom where you are planted. That's the nice version of it. The other version is bloom where you are potted. makes one wonder about the meaning of potted. But anyway, we found ourselves with certain parents. We've lived in certain places. We've been drawn into certain lines of vocation, avocation, career. That's not all by happenstance. There is a power which shapes men's ends, rough hew them how we will. It's Shakespeare, and basically he says there's a lot that about where we find ourselves that is determined from above. And if you look over your life, maybe crises have been lived through, or successfully, non-successfully, in certain places and with certain people. I can remember a few that make me, just go, oh, like that. But if you study those crises, you'll see how you did. Did you run away from them? Did you go through them successfully? Did you overcome them? I guess we have to realize that this habit of crisis and confronting it in the right way is a good thing, as painful as it may be.
I find what you're describing is sort of my idea of what constitutes a crisis, a test, and that is not the circumstances or the events that we find ourselves in, but our response, our reaction to those events, those circumstances.
I think that's very correct, because the same circumstances could be considered inconsequential to one and most consequential and evocative to another. So what is for us a crisis might be for someone else who has already passed through such things, or for whom it's not on their slate in life. Not all that consequential or difficult or noteworthy. They just pass on, and without noticing that any particular difficulty has been brought forward. So it's very individual matter, of course, but it's important for us to know when we are passing through a crisis with spiritual implications. Not just, to me, everything has spiritual implications, but there are things that just happen to people that are inconvenient, and they delay things, and they make the personality life less comfortable and all that. Those kinds of crises that lock you in place and delay you and cause pain and consternation, they can simply be of a personality nature. Now, you almost have to be at a spiritual level to be able to treat circumstantial confrontations as a spiritual crisis. Decay might recognize that you're having one. But unless you can recognize that, you're not getting the most out of it. So I think your point is well taken. I'm just scanning this. Well, you know how it is. Don't run away. I know some people with a Pisces moon. There is a tendency for some of those people to just flee from what may be presented to them as something they have to go through. On the other hand, that Pisces moon can throw you into real deep spiritual responsibility. It just depends upon the level of development that you are passing through. Now, you know, what is it for the Dalai Lama? I think it's not so much the moon as it is Saturn in Pisces. Some of you will have that. Well, you know, you could be locked up in a monastery or a cloister or prison or whatever, because there is a degree of imprisonment with that Saturn in Pisces. But is it the degree, perhaps, of imprisonment to necessary responsibility, which teaches you and others? Now, boy, I wouldn't like to have the Dalai Lama's traveling schedule. And even he recently, you know, you've seen pictures of him, and he's gotten quite a bit older, and he's in his 80s and so forth. But you see that he is the prisoner of that for which he is responsible and that he must carry on. Sometimes he's had to cancel a big thing because the vehicle just wouldn't take it. Okay. But in general, Saturn in Pisces can be very good or not so good. And so it goes for many positions that indicate the possibility of a negative crisis or a really productive crisis where understanding and expansion are being gathered. So, Leslie, thanks for pulling this out. This is a really good one. And the man who can really benefit from crisis has gone through a few of them. And look at that, each word spoken, each deed undertaken, every look, how we look at somebody, every thought has its effect for good or evil upon the group. This is in this little section, there is a cautionary tale to be read in a spiritually understanding manner. It makes us, well, as Moria would have it, and a word he always uses, it makes us so vigilant because we realize the effect we can have, and especially when you start to become a disciple, whoa, then you really have to be careful about what you say and what you do. Now, there's the old story of Pythagoras, which I've told you. And I suppose he was an initiate of the third or fourth degree at that time. And he upbraided or scolded or criticized or found fault with one of his students. And the student went out and committed suicide. And, who knows the karma, but it taught Master Kuthumi such a lesson about how to speak, what tone to carry, how far to go, all those things that wouldn't take things too far and maybe beyond the possibility of improvement, even into drastic results like suicide and death. So he learned a very, very hard lesson on that one. And of course, he's probably made it up now tenfold, but sometimes we go through those self-kicking experiences when we realize we really could have done something and we didn't do it, or we did do something and it was just over the top and had different consequence than what we intended, and maybe not a very good consequence at all. This constant watchfulness of ourselves. It's not easy, because inside your subconscious mind is the tendency to respond immediately, just out of habit. That's why I always admire the fifth ray from a distance. And these are people who actually think before they speak. I know it sounds like everybody would think before you speak, but it's not so. I've learned with the third ray, just keep your mouth in motion and an idea may come. Well, we learn on the thorny path of occultism. We complete within ourselves the structures that we have to build. We become geometricized, because it said that God geometrizes, right? Our planetary logos and whatever else is God geometrizes, So we persist and we learn how it's done, and we become patient, and we keep going on and on and on, and we realize that in the past and forever, we have gone on and on and on. Now, when I get to the issue of trying to solve linear movement when I don't think it exists, I'll let you know. We'll discuss that, particularly in the identification of as being. Because if no dimension exists in the point, and all things are really points, then no dimension exists and no movement exists. And that's a tough one to take in. Then how is all this happening? But that's another and a different class. So Leslie, thank you. And you're writing a little note here. Thank you. So go ahead, Michael.
Leslie asked you to please comment on, it's coming from another book, the way the disciple, quote, discovers the treasures of darkness, unquote. All he can see is his problem.
Well, go to chapter 10 of the rays and the initiations, and the disciple is forced back upon himself always. And instead of making, the Tibetan warns us about the illusion of rapid progress. And he says, okay, look, if someone seems to be making sudden, rapid progress, all this has been prepared by the slow, painstaking method before the progress appeared. So there's DK again saying, look, no really rapid way, maybe a little more rapid, a little less rapid, etc. But a lot of unseen preparation goes on in the dark. Well, that's what we're doing right now, The sun may be shining, it isn't here. And the day may be bright, but compared to what we will see in the light, we're in the dark. And these treasures of darkness are learned by us before we speed forward into the light. So we have not to be too eager. I remember long ago talking to a man whose business failed. He was a Wall Street entrepreneur and basically cared too much about himself and not enough about his clients. And I was saying to him, look, when it comes to spiritual progress, it really is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But he would have none of that. His vision of his progress was from mountain peak to mountain peak to mountain peak to mountain peak without interruption, steady, and without the selfless descent to share what had been gathered on any mountain peak. So his business failed, and it was a big business, but you kind of look that if there's too much self-aggrandizement, and the worst of all, megalomania, of which we see examples these days, failure inevitably lies ahead. You might say, where are the Roman emperors now? Where are they now? Well, a few of them attempted a comeback, but the people will not have any of it. They will not. So as we go, and as Hercules learned in Gemini, you can't rush it. You have to stop to serve. Now, in the beginning, he misses the voice of Nereus, the intuition. Then he picks up Antaeus and disempowers him. And gosh, what does he do? I'm forgetting number 3. Maybe Tuya could help me, or Michael if you know it. But number 4, he has to stop and help free Prometheus, or no, it's something about, he has to work at helping someone else rather than speeding forward. And then number 5, he has the golden apples of the Hesperides, and normally a person would be jumping up and trying to grab those apples, but he's got to help Atlas. And if he doesn't help Atlas, he doesn't get the apples. So for all of us, when we stop to help somebody and we think, oh, this is taking time away from my quest. I want to get there. I want to get those. I want to get. The very giving of stopping before getting is what makes it possible to get. I wonder why I'm forgetting the third. Oh, gosh. That's so funny. It's the problem with Bucyrus. So he learns who is the false teacher and who is the real teacher within. And I'm sure we've all had that problem. Who just wants to teach you for his own satisfaction, and who is the real teacher. It's different. So that's kind of funny. It's gonna make me study this to see for what reason. I forgot number 3. I still believe in Freud enough to go searching for the reason. Now, like most teachers, we probably believe, oh, yes, I've experienced false teachers, but I've never been one. Well, let's see what the others say about that. So we have to learn who is the real teacher. And the real teacher, you know, is it's the solar angel within. It's our monad and the solar angel. It's interior. It's no one like Bucyrus. And then when you run into Atlas, well, you're helping the hierarchy. And maybe you're even helping the planetary logos uphold this whole creation. And it is not a straight path from peak to peak to peak to peak. You have to go down and help. Then you climb again, learn more, go down and help. I think that's the law. That's the law. And meanwhile, the treasures of darkness, it keeps you from learning superficially. So you actually do learn something that is a foundation in the relative darkness, rather than rushing ahead, and having superficial knowledge which feeds pride, unfortunately. Okay, we pretty much, anyone want to say anything further about our reading? I say Thuy and I have been so very busy. And by the way, tomorrow night, wait, not tomorrow night, Friday night at 8:35 p.m. GMT. So always just always know your distance from GMT, that's all. If you have summertime, it'll be one thing. If you have ordinary time, standard time, it'll be another. And it'll only be one of those two and nothing more. So you can always find out what time it is where you are compared to Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Time. Anyway, tomorrow or rather Friday at 8:35, we're going to maybe have our fifth meeting in our fourth pledging for the Esoteric United Nations. And I want to tell you, it is valuable. At first, I wondered how Tuya and I would have the time to do all these countries. And of course, she's taken the major, well, all the descriptions of the countries on herself. And then I began to realize I was really learning something that I didn't know before at all. I was learning how other people live when I hadn't really anything but a very general idea. So on Friday night, we'll, I think, give the countries that we'll be working with for the first week. And then we'll see how that works out. There's Tuya has them arranged in a certain order. And every day we think about the spiritual nature and the obstacles in that country or nation. And we try to, through the imagination, improve things, draw in what is needed. So quite a few people now have joined up. And if you are inclined to join the process, then you would come along with us at that time. And you would come, here it is, the EUN meeting number 5.
Michael.
Yeah, Michael.
Friday night, the Dissipation of Glamour webinar is at 6 p.m. GMT, and the Esoteric UN is at 8:35 p.m. GMT. And during that webinar for the Esoteric UN, there will be something perhaps on the Aquarius new moon. The treatise on the treatise on cosmic fire in depth has been moved to Saturday at 8 p.m. GMT in order to take care of the Esoteric UN webinar.
Thank you, Michael. That's we tried to do that to keep everything in control. And now here in your chat box, if you want to come to the 5th meeting of the Esoteric United Nations. Now, I mean, obviously, we're having a bunch more get started meetings, okay? We're not going to do it this way. Maybe if we have one group meeting a month or something, I still have to talk to you about this. It will be enough. And the whole process is so simple. If today was a day out of the first 200 days of the year, when I'm thinking about France, then I would know that France has a 5th-ray soul and a 3rd-ray personality. Rather rare to have such a mental combination. And I would think about its Pisces soul sign and its Leo personality sign. And I would just think about invoking the soul and of France through its ray and sign. I would think about its needs, its relation to Northern Africa. The French Foreign Legion had its consequences. The way right now that the Islamic way of being is playing out in French society may be the most challenging confrontation of any of the European nations. I know Sweden has a lot. I would think about a few things and anything that might come to me. Maybe I'd sit down, maybe I'd just keep walking, I don't know. And maybe in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and if you really want to go a little further, 10 minutes, you'd have some kind of line of rapport with France. And France as a spiritual entity would be closer to humanity's appreciation, and thus it would go with the different countries. You wouldn't necessarily know for every country the ray because DK didn't give them. And for many countries, you would know the astrology, but not for all. There's many new countries. So I'm sure it's going to be a big learning experience for all of us, and that we'll be closer to humanity for knowing what humanity really is in many different places of the world. It'll be closer to, we will be closer to humanity when this process is finished in 5 years, 7 years. So I don't know, some 60, 70, maybe 80 people are already in it. If you would like to be participating, just come along Friday night, and you have the way to get there. It's a special link. Otherwise, write me infinitize8@gmail.com, or write Tuya period S as in Sam, with a period, and then Robbins@gmail.com. And we'll give that to you if there's a problem with you wanting to come but not able to get the link now, or if you know anybody that would like the link. I'm sure that there'll be quite a few people that really want to help in this global sense. So thanks, Michael, for giving us the rundown on what's coming up. And okay, anything further before we call it a day? And I think okay, and I trust and hope you have benefited from esoteric psychology too, and from some of the things which Leslie has said, and I think are very important. Yeah, that's right. She's made a lot of comments, and they're good ones, and they help us get oriented. Okay, friends, then, if we are, I'll just give you a little meditation, little one. And I think I can use this diagram which Tuya prepared from the Cosmic Fire. Just think meditatively about the triangles you may be in process of completing. Well, as we rise, different triangles are created or fulfilled. Our next triangle for most of us, is what goes on right in the soul. We have to create a triangle here between the knowledge petals, the love petals, and the sacrifice petals. And that triangle is not complete. Otherwise, more of us would be third-degree initiates, because when all 9 petals are unfolded, there you have the 3rd degree. Then look at the triangle of synthesis, the synthesis of knowledge, the synthesis of love, the synthesis of will. That triangle has to be completed in our own microcosmic life before the 4th initiation. And other things are going on within the jewel in the lotus, which he doesn't specify, but okay, we'll get to it. Now look at the Antakarana. It's triangularly represented here, isn't it? Have you completed yours? Have I completed mine? Maybe not, huh? Such that from mental unit to the center of the soul, there is a line of energy. And from the center of the soul, or at least from the synthesis area to the area of the higher mind, there is a line of energy. And then DK has given us the Antakarana to make the 3rd line of energy. That's a triangle to be completed. And then when we get beyond that, our next triangle, which we're not going to complete now, and which the masters maybe have just completed, is the spiritual triad triangle. That will take some lives. 3rd initiation, 4th initiation, 5th initiation, and eventually one more triangle is shown. Now, Tuya and I have drawn still a higher triangle. DK doesn't give that, but he hints at it. But we've got the triangle of the monad. We're nowhere near being able to deal with the pure form of will, wisdom, and activity. But above it still will be something we call the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, or Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And that will complete the triangular relations on the cosmic physical plane. So we have a lot yet to do. And you know, if you say, "Oh, I can't do that; it's too tough," remember the statement of that great 1st ray, 5th ray monad, and you will recognize that maybe the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Now, who said that? We have to be grateful to St. Paul for having said that, at least for certain types of people. Okay. Okay, friends, so that looks like it. There's so much to get into, and a little bit at a time will come the accrual of the knowledge you need to take one step after another on this great path of initiation. First, discipleship, one step after another, and then initiation. You're on the path, so keep treading it. And come to the conference in person. I'd love to see you there. And it would be, for us, a great help, too, if you could show up in person. Now we'll close with the great invocation. Keep yourself on self-mute. And then tonight at 6 p.m., just like Michael said, we've got the actual triangles meditation, as DK pretty much gave it. And next, on Friday, we have several things going. Michael, did we have, yeah, what did we have at 6 a.m.? Anything you recall?
On Friday, we have no events at 6 a.m. GMT because the Ask program this week is at 6 p.m. GMT.
Very good. Okay. Yeah. So we will have the evening, the double evening schedule. 6 p.m. will be the Lammer, correct? And
yes.
Then there is the Cosmic Fire at 8. Wait a second. At 8:35, there is the EUN, Esoteric United Nations, and the next day is Cosmic Fire. What time?
Cosmic Fire, Saturday, 8 p.m. GMT.
Very good. Okay, friends, I appreciate that you stayed with us. And now, out loud, where you are at home, if you can, but with mute on here, let's have the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. And may I say, every attempt to define what light and love really are is beneficial to you. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide, the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. I know you could do a better Om than I did on that last one. So, okay, look, the whole team sends you love and blessings, and Michael and Joe and BL and Tuya and myself and Olivia, and maybe there are some others a little bit involved here, and we're trying to get you these programs, webinars, to assist with your study, meditation, and ongoing general illumination. So we'll see you tonight, those of you who come for the broadcast on Triangles. See you then, and many blessings, all the best to you.